Hello, welcome to the Comic Book Club. I'm your host, Jamil Payne, and with me as always, my co-host, Amanda Comey. How are you, Amanda?
I'm doing alright. How are you doing?
I'm ready to talk about some more Sandman in Volume 2, which proven to be kind of a marathon of our prestige format of Sandman.
Well, if it wouldn't be worth it if it was easy, right?
That's right. Today we are here to talk about Volume 5, Game of You, Volume 6, Fables and Reflections, and Volume 7, Brief Lives.
And this was a lot of reading.
This was a lot. Well, one of them was pretty short, but Brief Lives was pretty damn long.
It was not brief.
No, it's not. It was not brief at all.
So I wanted to ask you something that I had mentioned when we spoke in our first episode was about how I had forgotten that so many of the stories from Sandman were Sandman stories. I had sort of internalized them and I remembered them, but I didn't remember them specifically as being from this series. It's been a month. I wanted to just ask, like, what do you remember most from the first 4 that we read? What is your, just, like, now that it's not fresh in your mind, just, like, what stands out to you, what do you remember?
I guess the generic answer would be just how, creepy it is. I mean, not creepy, but, just how, unconventional, a lot of these stories are. And just how heavy some of this content can be. The thing with the serial killers, the shit, what happened in hell, there's so much, it feels like I've been reading this for years at this point, and, it feels like adventures I've went on. And I don't mean that, I know that's, I don't even mean that in a bad way, it's just, it's just dense, and it's the through line seems to be is Dream is a storyteller, and all these books are like a metaphor for storytelling. That seems to be the main theme, and that basically storytelling within the Sandman universe is a basic building block of a galaxy, of a universe itself.
Yeah. I think this is all really well put. I have been so looking forward to talking about all of this with you again, just because you have such a strong sense of how stories work. And
Do I?
No, really, really, I think you do. I think you're really able to articulate how characters are supposed to work and why it doesn't work out sometimes. I would give a specific example, but that would just get us off topic.
Yeah. We'll need to start praising each other.
Okay, I had very similar feeling. You read these stories and it feels like you've already known them for years, and they just kind of get into your bones right away and change you.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because I think this stuff is going to stay with me, but I'm going to say something controversial right now.
Do it.
I'm not for sure if I'm enjoying my time reading these books or not.
Well, isn't that the interesting thing? It's like those movies that make you cry.
Right. All this is good. All this is great. Like you said, it's probably going to stick with me, but I'm not quite for sure if I enjoy the moment-to-moment reading. I know afterwards, right, I feel like I've accomplished something, I've done something, I knocked out another volume, I knocked out another issue, that was great, but I don't think I'm enjoying the moment-to-moment reading. Sometimes I am, but it feels like a lot of times I'm just getting through it, and it's not until I'm finished that I feel like it was worth it.
I think that is not a very controversial opinion. It is very, very dense, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a twist, but a lot of the stories you don't really get the point until the end.
Right.
And it's asking a lot for you to put in the work as a reader to get through it, to get to the end and have the payoff. Especially in something which I'm now trying to imagine myself reading this as it came out in the 90s. And like, could you imagine doing that work but having to wait a year for the payoff?
You know what though?
Mm.
That might be better.
Okay.
I mean, like, that sounds crazy, but you know, if you think about it, right? There's a lot per issue, right? Like, I don't know if I mind wait. Like maybe part of the problem I'm having is that we're reading it all at once, and we're reading so much of it. Again, I'm just throwing this out there. It may or may not be that, but like maybe that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's like I don't have time to digest issues. Like, I have to move on to the next one just by the nature of our show, right? I don't have time to sit and think about this. I feel like in a year, we're gonna have a special episode about Sandman where we just talk about the whole series, because I think I need time to really digest all this and to get like my full feelings on it.
Yes, that's fair. I was going to add that I believe the individual numbering of these issues, I believe that the volumes that are collected now, which is how almost everyone reads them, they switched the order a little bit. So the like kind of through plot line for Morpheus would have been alternated with some of the standalone stories.
Okay.
So you would have had, like, you know, Dream and Delirium, like one issue of that, and then it would go, you know, to the Marco Polo story next month, and that's a standalone single, and then it would go back to Dream and Delirium. So I think that the issues were also a little bit more mixed up when they were coming out.
I know that might have been better, believe it. I know that sounds crazy, but that actually might have been better. Just for the simple fact it'll give you a nice, you know, break.
Yes. I think it also kind of emphasizes, I mean, time being not necessarily, I guess I would call it not soft, or time as a hard concept is sort of something that he plays with, and it would be interesting to have the issues offset like that to kind of play with how long things take, and which things are happening at the same time. So do you have any other like general thoughts, or do you want to talk a little bit about each volume?
Yeah, let's talk about each volume. I think this might be a slightly longer episode. I think the Prestige formats are always a little bit longer. Maybe not as long as last episode, but you know, I think.
Yeah.
But I think we should give Sandman the time it deserves.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we'll start off with volume 5, which is what again?
This is A Game of You, and this covers, I guess what I would call all of the Barbie issues.
The Barbie saga?
Yeah, and Barbie, this is the same Barbie from issue 2, A Doll's House, where she was just a side character.
Right.
And she is staying in an apartment in New York, and one of the other tenants is a lesbian couple, and one of those women was dating one of the women who was stuck in the diner in the first issue.
And come to find out that she was abusive, apparently.
Yes. And I'm trying to think, were there any other connections? Just sort of this notion that, you know, just like stories work in the movies, you know, these side characters aren't, there's only like a finite number of side characters in a movie, so you just have to like keep reusing them.
Right.
And those sort of little Easter eggs are like classic comic book things, right? Like, that's so comic booky to have it be like, oh,
it's all connected.
This could be a new character, but we're going to make her, you know, we're going to have a throwback to reward you for having read the other issue. But honestly, I kind of loved it.
So,
out
of the 3 volumes we read,
yes,
this might be my least favorite.
Okay.
And I think it's that thing of, I don't think I like it to the end.
Mhm.
But reading it again, I know I just said this, but this particular story, I just feel like, and I don't know what it is, but it's kind of dry. I guess it's the word I'm looking for. Like, there's a lot of them just wandering around in the woods and shit, and like, there's a tedium to this volume that I can't quite put my finger on that I didn't have with the other volumes. Which is weird because like it's one contained story, and I feel like I should like this more than say volume 2, which is mostly like standalone stories. But for some reason, I just found a slight tedium with this. Now, when it's all said and done, you know, it was good. But like, I don't know,
I feel like the role of this volume in the overall series was that you can't really have, if your entire work is about stories and storytelling, at some point you need to address like the Narnia Tolkien fantasy quest story.
Right. And again, I usually love that shit.
I have a very particular complaint about like epic fantasy, which is that just making something long can make you care. Like, after you've been reading about something for a month and you get to the end of the book, you're going to care about what happens to those characters no matter what. Even if it wasn't interesting, even if it wasn't good, just having a long trip with characters can sort of like artificially inflate the character development or your connection to them. And so I feel like this was almost
done on purpose.
I feel like this is almost Gaiman showing like the weakness of that story and how like this is on the edge of the dreaming. Like, this is real estate that Morpheus I haven't thought through exactly what I think the backstory was for this, but this is real estate that Morpheus gave to a woman to kind of like build her own dream world in. And it's just sort of like it's sort of amateur. It's kind of how it feels. Amateur and derivative. Her dream world.
Oh, shit, that's harsh. I wouldn't even say all that. I was just kind of bored by it. Like, look, there's parts in here that I really like. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I want to make that clear.
Well, there are parts of this story I like overall, but specifically, like, the world that Barbie goes to is like almost like a parody.
Right.
So what parts did you like? Camping in the woods is always boring.
You know, it's weird, right? Because I love Lord of the Rings, but Maybe because I'm an old dad now. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
because nothing happens for like 2 or 3 issues. Like it's just, it feels like nothing happens for 2 or 3 issues, and they're just walking. Like, and it feels like Barbie is not an active participant in her own destiny, in her own story,
Right.
and things just kind of happen to her.
Mm-hmm. I
But,
think that's a valid observation.
like, it's just her like being afraid and like. I mean, there's one scene in here that's almost directly out of Lord of the Rings, and I'm not for sure if it was on purpose or not. I'm not even sure it was in the book in the I'm not even sure it was in the book, but I know it was in the Ralph Bansky cartoon and the movie later, where like they're like under a like mound, and like the evil guys are like marching over, and like if they just look, they'll find them. And it was just
Mm-hmm.
like, it's just like I've been here before.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, isn't that like what so many people do to help themselves fall asleep? Is like you sit there and you're trying to fall asleep and you're trying to relax and you're like, okay, I'm just going to imagine like I'm going to imagine that I'm on a quest with Frodo, and like you just like play the movie in your head or something. Like a
Right.
lot of people do that. It's such a like a self-insert daydream almost is it's just like a very common thing that people do when they're trying to fall asleep, and uh it's a very common type of dream.
So I think we should talk about the social justice warrior complaint in the room. This is not even a complaint, but it's just fun. Again, we talk about how like Neil Gaiman do certain things that would get him yelled at now by assholes, and
Hmm.
like there's a whole like trans person in this book,
Yes.
and it's not even. It doesn't even matter, right? Like if that was today, you know, he'd be on the hit list for like Comicsgate. I don't know, but like it was really interesting having like a trans person, and like it's that thing where like when she first shows up, right?
Right.
She looks off, and I hate to say that. And I'm not trying to be like a bigot or anything, but there's clearly I was like, is she just an ugly woman? Like, is she?
Right, right. It's like, is she, like, are they just trying to make Barbie look prettier by
Yeah.
having, like, her friend be ugly? Um, yeah, no, it definitely, it's, it's an interesting choice.
Yeah. So then when you kind of find out that she's trans, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, cool,
Yeah,
cool. I really like the lesbian couple. Well, the aspect that I liked is that the one girl gets pregnant because she's never dealt with a dude before. So like she was ill prepared to deal with like a dude's
yeah,
charm. I found that funny. Like she was just ill prepared. Like she didn't know how dudes operate.
right.
And she ended up getting pregnant because that's
Yeah.
what dudes do.
Yep.
And Barbie was like, "Oh, you poor soul." Like he just wanted to sleep. Like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I've done that before." No, but no, there's like I said, the fantasy world is actually like pretty cool. Like really, like it's really realized. I think how like it feel like he doesn't take any half measures with the fantasy world, even though I find it kind of dull. And like I keep saying this about this book, but this book is kind of brutal, man. Like like people just get dispatched left and right. Like these cute woodland, like enchanted creatures keep getting murdered, or shot in the street like a dog. It's really like disconcerting to see this.
It's definitely, again, I feel like that's how fantasy stories work. I feel like he has to sort of show us this trope of, killing your darlings or whatever just to like make you care.
Then there was a betrayal.
Hmm. I mean, honestly, okay, this is like, I mean this in a good way and a bad way at the same time. The fantasy world in this feels very much like Joss Whedon. Like, it's creative and it's got like a little bit of girl power, but not too much. Like, once you think about it, you're like, maybe not. And it's just like got all sorts of like really cool like little characters that you like. And he's just like the cute one. The cute one goes first. Like the big fluffy dog, gone immediately.
The adorable monkey, he gets
Yep.
hanged by his entrails, I think.
Yeah. Um. So there's one more character in here who is actually one of my absolute favorites that we haven't talked about yet.
And who's that?
Thessaly?
Really?
Yeah, the witch.
Yes. You know what? No. I know exactly who you're talking about. It's just, that makes sense, Amanda. Like, looking at you and looking at her, I don't want to do any stereotypes or nothing, but it makes perfectly sense why you would like that character.
Well, what I love is that personality-wise, she's almost like the girl version of Dream.
Right.
And it's just interesting how you perceive that differently when it's a woman doing it. Because we know that Dream, like, he is a vengeful asshole.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Like, you even, like, look at him wrong and he's like, you are going to have a nightmare you never wake up from for the rest of your life. And she's the same way. She's like, somebody tried to hurt me and I was able to dispatch them, their messenger easily, but I'm going to go all the way back up and I'm going to find the mob boss and I'm going to kill them for even thinking about accidentally attacking me. Like that just, and her whole like, I'm going to actually call the moon for help instead of going through the proper channels, and I'm just going to, every other member of her cult or her coven or her, her country, her past, everyone else is dead. And she doesn't look at that as a warning. She looks at it as proof that she's like the best. So I find that inside her sort of quiet exterior, she's actually, just kind of a badass.
But yeah, I can see why you like that character a lot. I think mine might be, you know what? I can't remember names because there's so much going on. The transgender girl.
Wanda?
Wanda. I think Wanda might be my favorite character, honestly. And like, I think what I really want to talk about with this is that was the last issue after Wanda dies.
Yes.
That was really hard to get through.
Yes.
And again, you know me, I transgender people, gay people, hell, most things that's not me, I could really give a damn about. But I just felt so bad that like even like in death,
yeah,
her family couldn't accept her for who she was. Like, you know what I'm saying? And they could,
like it almost would have been better if they had just ignored her.
Right.
Like if they had just been like, we don't even know who this person is, and they had let, Barbie and her friends have the funeral for her instead.
Exactly. And like that was, it reminds me of, just on a small tangent, it reminds me of Brandon Tina, the transgender man that got killed, about 20 years ago. Harry Slink played him in Boys Don't Cry.
Okay.
And in real life, after she was murdered and raped by those men, right? Her mother and sister buried her as a woman.
Okay.
Instead of the man she wanted to be.
Yeah.
or she's seen herself as. They buried her as a woman, and on her grave it says like loving, like daughter and sister.
Mm.
And it's and like, and when I read about that, like it broke my heart because it feels like you almost spitting on her grave.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about this. Like, it's spitting on her grave. You spitting on her. You, like, your child is dead. Like, let them have that thing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you know, their last wish would have been to let me, like, in my death, let me be who I want to be. But even then, these people are so selfish that they felt they had to keep up appearance.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was, yeah, no, it was, I agree.
I'm sorry, that was so heavy. That was so heavy.
No. I mean, it is probably the most, I'm sitting here and I'm like, Cecily's a badass with really cool magic. And you're like, Neil Gaiman was super progressive and telling like really nuanced stories, 20 years ago. But I think I really love that he showed both people accepting Wanda and also a little bit of the not accepting her, because I feel like I learned a lot from reading this story when I was a little bit younger.
Right.
If it had just been presented as only accepting of Wanda and it never showed us Alvin's family being horrible, or also that the moon doesn't consider her a woman, but Death does. Like if it didn't show me a little bit of both sides, I don't think I would have taken the lesson from it
Right, exactly.
that I needed to.
Yes. 100% agreed. And in this book, she has a pretty unceremonious death. God bless her. Like, I don't even see I don't see why they killed her to begin with. Like, honestly, like, I think that's when the killing got too much for me. And like, I was just like, you didn't have to kill her. That was unnecessary.
Mm.
Like, I feel like, she just there doing her damn. Look, I was like, she just there doing her best. Damn it, you didn't have to kill her. She was there with her friend, and like,
Yeah.
just a quirk of like the magic look. I don't know, like she died, but like also like that. Yes, like when she's with Death, she's a full woman, and like that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was like a really beautiful moment. And I loved seeing her as the Wanda she imagined she was.
Exactly.
And I kind of like this thought that maybe that's true for everybody, is that like when death comes to get you, it's like the real you.
The you always wanted to be.
Yeah. And honestly, seeing like perfect Wanda and seeing what she was trapped in. Also,
I mean, to be honest with you, she was a hideous man. Like, if we're being honest, I probably want to be a pretty woman too, because she when she was a man was an ugly dude. Like,
yeah. So, I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, I'm like, if that's who I really was and that was the body I was trapped inside, I would be feeling a lot too. I mean, like, not to make light of.
no, of course not. Of course not.
But it helps,
you feel their pain. I think it's a way to like feel their pain.
Like a tenth of their pain, but
yeah.
You got to start somewhere.
Exactly. Let's see. Is there anything else we could say about this volume? Like, what do you think the overall arc for this volume? What do you think this particular volume is trying to say?
Okay, so I think this is kind of setting up this I think it's setting up a lot of ideas about how epic fantasy stories work
Okay.
to prepare us for the overall arc of the whole series.
Okay.
And it's trying to, it's putting in your mind this idea that there's like sometimes a tedious middle, and that there are going to be deaths, and you're going to say that's stupid. All you're doing is playing with my emotions. And this sort of, almost this sort of like when you get to the end, like you get to learn like a truth or see like a small thing that was real. But I think the role of this overall was to make you start thinking about the sort of like epic fantasy genre in general and how this story is going to be similar, fall into that category or like not.
Okay. That's about as good of a guess as any. All right, so let's move on to the next one, which is Fables and Reflections. Right now, believe it or not, I think this one we should go through a little slower. I think the last volume that we're going to get to today is actually better, but that's one story, so we can talk about that a little more generally. Yes. But Fable and Reflections are more standalone stories, right?
Yes.
So you have like the first one, the first issue of this, and like it's about a playwright who's going to quit.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, and it's like only 12 pages, which I don't understand what that was supposed to mean. Like, was this like a special or something?
It might have been.
Because it's only 12 pages.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. Maybe it was a free comic book day book.
Ha.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it does set up this idea that that when you're dreaming, you know how to fly.
Right.
I don't know. I thought it was a cute little story.
Right. It's not much of consequence. And the next story, what is it called? The 3 Septembers in January. It's actually a true story. Well, not what happens in it, but this is actually a real person.
Yes.
This guy in San Francisco, like, again, this book makes me look up stuff. Like, hold up, is this a real? Like, yeah, there was a real guy, man. He was really well respected, and he really did have the idea for the Golden Gate Bridge first. That's nuts. That this crazy man had the idea for this suspension bridge.
Yeah, and also, I had most recently been reminded of the Emperor of the U.S. because someone had posted a story about, there was a Make-A-Wish boy in San Francisco who wanted to be Bat Kid for a day.
Yes.
And like the entire city, like they got a Batman and they got like a Batmobile and they had like a scavenger hunt where he like went through the city and like helped people, and dozens of businesses were involved and like hundreds of people like played along with this so that he could like actually save the city. And someone brought this up as an example and they're like, yo, San Francisco will just go along with your shit. Like that is what that city does. Like that is the city of dreams.
Right.
If you want to be Emperor of the United States, you go to San Francisco and they're like, cool, let's do it. And
I was say Death Dream makes a deal with Despair, who's by the way just hideous looking. I don't mean the body shame, but Jesus Christ. And she's cutting herself, and the guy's cutting himself, and basically Dream makes him crazy to keep him sane, more or less.
Yes. He gives him like a purpose in life by giving him a dream. And that is what prevents despair from taking him. It's just kind of a crazy dream.
Exactly. And we also like the other siblings, some of the other siblings show up, like Death and Delirium.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sweet Delirium. We'll get to her later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this is just a nice, this is just a cool story. The one guy's come back from the dead and tries to tempt him, and he doesn't go for it.
Yep.
Also, whatchamacallit is there to basically ride the dead dude's face, apparently. What's her name? What sibling is that? The main
Desire?
Desire, yes, the main antagonist of this series, apparently. Yeah, so that's the thing.
I think this is also a good story for kind of getting you into the dynamic that all of the Endless have.
Right.
Because we talked in the first episode about how Gaiman showed a lot of restraint and not just like constantly throwing death into every issue, and even using Morpheus relatively little. And so this is kind of, I guess this is maybe like, well, I suppose there was, back in issue 4, there was a meeting of all the Endless, but this is really like, since then, the first time we've seen them all hanging out.
Right. So this is about Lady Joanna Constantine getting back Death's son's head. That's a weird sentence to say.
Yes.
Apparently, and this is during the French Revolution, I believe.
Yep.
And apparently someone stole it from, and we'll get to that, I guess, but yeah, someone stole it. And like, that's another thing about these, like there's a lot of things that they're not answering in order.
Right.
Like, so I still have questions. But yes. Yeah, anyway, she finds his head, she gets it back to the island, and I can't quite remember what her gift was. Like, didn't like Death gives her something in return, I believe.
I don't remember. I feel like it might be answered later in a different story.
Right.
Because that wasn't really like the point of it.
No, it wasn't. So we move on to the next one, the hunt.
Well, okay. Hey, one more thing though. As like a quick, connecting back to the volumes that we read already. This has the 2 Easter eggs in it for us.
Right.
Joanna Constantine, apparently, is how we say it.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare!
She had heard the rumor of Dream and Hobgadling meeting at the bar every 100 years.
Right.
And she ambushed them there.
Yep.
And that was how Dream met her. And so this is supposed to be just a little bit after that, where he comes and he asks her for this favor. And then I also, it is implied, but I guess not explained in this issue, who Orpheus's mother was.
No, I think we know at this point that he had a son. And
yes.
Okay,
we see the actual story
later, but like they do mention that Orpheus, but it is mentioned in the was it Penelope story that they had a son.
Yeah.
So like
we know that Calliope is his mom.
Well, they don't say it outright, but you can kind of connect one and one.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just again, like, this is just sort of more links in the web of the story, is that these aren't really new characters for us.
Right, it is a big old through line.
Yeah.
Now,
the hunt.
Yes. I really like this story.
Yeah.
like a
Yeah,
light.
no, it's a really good story.
It is. It is. This is probably the most fairy tale like story here. Like out right down to it having a happy ending.
Yes, yes.
So is there anything you want to say about this? Like there's not much to say. Like it's a story. It's a fable. Like that's basically what it is. I'm not even sure what this has to do with like necessarily the overall like plot of this, but I guess every story doesn't have to. Like Dream and Lucian do come in towards the end. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so. In addition to this, just giving us this whole little world of, I guess, not werewolves, but like half wolf people, half Roma, like fable people, which is just a really cool idea. It's sort of a story about like getting what you wish for and then realizing that you don't really need it. Because he travels all the way to the Duke's castle, and when he gets there and he sees the daughter, he's like, "Oh, that's it, that's her," and he's like, "Okay, I'm good." So I think maybe it's a story about how infatuation is very weak.
Right, and maybe that might have some through line later when it comes to Dream.
Yes, this is maybe a story that Dream should have been paying attention to.
Yeah, because it's weird, right? Because we're gonna get to it, but like a lot of people call him a romantic fool, and I'm just like, where? But then you look at all the women that he's with, like I guess he is. Like you don't think of him as it's like one of the things that he probably don't even see himself as a romantic fool. It's like one of those things that people realize about you that you don't realize about yourself.
Well, but I mean, again, also, how could he be the god of stories when, like, half of all stories are romance, right?
Right. But
so
like,
he has to have that aspect.
But just like his demeanor, like it's just you because like they don't show that. They never show him being romantic per se. Like he's just like a cold, but apparently he is like deep down.
Yeah.
He's a romantic at heart.
Yeah.
So this story ends like we even give the whole framing, but I guess if you're reading along, like this story is a grandfather telling a story to his shitty teenage granddaughter. I hate teenagers.
Yeah.
And like it ends with him saying, "Yeah, that story was about me, more or less." Now two things, right? He could have been lying, or as we find out in these volumes that we are reading, some people just have long life for whatever reason.
Yes. There's this idea that all of the magical things from long ago didn't really die. We just don't recognize them now.
Right, they just became kind of regular people.
Yeah.
So like, if you think about, Hob and Lady Constantine, who's apparently was like, a couple of 100 years old apparently, right? Is it? Yeah. And in this story, right? So like they quietly setting up this world where like some people are just long living for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Now the next story is actually one I kind of knew what was going to happen. I kind of knew how this story was going to end before it got started, which is, what is it? Avest?
Augustus?
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I think it's
Augustus.
I think it's
that
trying
makes
to
sense.
be Roman
Yes.
style letters.
Yes, that makes complete sense. Okay. All I'm gonna say about this is I knew this was gonna end up with him getting raped. That's how I knew that. I knew that like from the first page when he wakes up crying, I knew he was gonna end up raped. Now I didn't know he was gonna get raped by Caesar, but
yeah.
All right, we need to speed through these. The Marco Polo story is kind of cool. There's this thing about time in here where like apparently Marco Polo is dead and alive at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And Fiddler's Green, like, well, to me, you've been dead. But also, he's not, because he does find his, he finds his father. So he can't obviously be dead if he finds his father, right?
Well, I don't think he's dead. I think it's Marco Polo as a boy stuck in the desert, and then the guy who is in prison next to him wanders into the desert, and then they both meet Fiddler's Green. So I don't think he's alive and dead at the same time. It's just that they're from different periods of time.
But doesn't that mean there's time travel within this book? Like, is there a first instance of like maybe sort of kind of time travel?
It's not really time travel because none of them go back to a different time.
Well, the only reason I keep saying because Fiddler Green said they have been dead, they've always been dead, and it's 300 and 400 years later.
For him. But they're not, this place that they're in, like they're not in Florida or something. They're not even in the desert.
Okay.
They're like outside of space and time, and they all came there from different places and times. Okay. And they're all going back to exactly where they came from, and in fact, they're going to think it's a dream when they wake up.
You know what? My head hurts. Okay. Okay, now this might be my favorite story, and it introduces maybe my favorite brother, Destruction. I love Destruction. Destruction is such a great guy.
Yeah.
He makes everybody happy.
Which is so interesting because you would think that Destruction would make everyone upset.
Right.
So this is when we're starting to get this idea of the Endless also representing their opposites.
Yep.
You can't create without destroying, and like you can't desire without hating, and you can't hope without despair, and
so forth and so on. Yeah. So yeah, he's great. I see why they miss him. Like he's clearly the most normal and likable. Like him and Death are probably the most normal, right?
Yeah. Well, they're also the most human. They're the ones who spend the most time around us.
Exactly. So yeah. And this is a Greek tragedy. This is a straight up Greek tragedy.
Yes.
This is about Morpheus' son making very, very bad decisions.
Yes.
Over and over again. And his friend that tries to rape his wife,
mm-hmm.
Does he ever come back? I know this is like a small spoiler. Does he ever come back?
I don't think so. There's one scene in particular towards the end where there's just like a lot of characters that he might be in. But I don't remember him playing a significant role again. Right.
And again, I just want to say, is this weird idea of maybe time travel? Mm-hmm. Because when Orpheus goes see his Death, she's in a Martin-looking apartment.
Well, she's in her realm.
Yeah, but like, it's Martin. It's not like wherever time this is not in the time wherever it's supposed to be, right?
Well, I mean, why would she? Well, I guess a few things. If you're going to the abstract realm of death, like, who's to say that you have to go to the realm of that realm at exactly the time that you're in? Well,
what I'm trying to say, it seems like time is fluid within this story all of a sudden. I don't believe it was that was the case at first, but it seems like time is a little fluid and it's not as rigid as
Yeah, this is definitely introducing the idea that the Endless are everywhere. Like we've been sort of comfortable with the idea that Dream is all of the dreams, all of the time, everywhere.
Right.
But he also, there's no reason for him to experience time at all. Like, there's no reason for, if you can be everywhere at the same time, you can also be every time at the same time.
Exactly. Orpheus makes a deal. He messes up the deal. He becomes immortal. A bunch of naked women tear him apart, and he's only ahead.
Yes. Yes. He goes to see, his wife is, raped. She dies. He goes to see his dad. His dad's like, dude, this is just what happens. Like women are drama. You're going to feel bad. He goes to see Destruction. Destruction says, I guess you could go see Death. And then Death says that she can help him get to the underworld, but only if she never comes back for him, if he never dies.
Right.
And so then he goes to the underworld. He makes a deal with Hades. The deal doesn't go through because he's weak, I guess. Or
he looks back.
He looks back. And so then he ends up on Earth without his girlfriend and immortal, which is even worse. Because when he started out, he was just going to have a normal lifespan without her and then die and be with her. And now he's stuck on Earth forever without her. And he's only ahead now.
And it's very, I don't know if you know anything, I don't know how much you know the Bible, but there's very Sodom and Gomorrah of don't look back, because if you look back, something bad will happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also that's also, like, literally a Greek myth, too.
Really? Shit, I didn't know.
No, I mean, they all come from the same sort of, like, this is one of those archetypes, this is like every culture along the Mediterranean had a version of this don't look back story.
Okay, and it ends basically where Orpheus is going to be is like on this island with these priests. Now let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Why is why is Dream so upset with him?
Well, this is my opinion. Why are fathers ever upset with their children?
Because
I think it's because he sees Orpheus making the same mistakes he makes. He's a hopeless romantic and makes bad choices and is like a crybaby drama queen. And he's like, why can't you be better than me?
You just remind me too much of me. And look at you now. You didn't follow none of my advice, and now you're just ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next story is about Daniel, Dream's apparent son. There's not much to say, just the fact that apparently Daniel clearly has dream powers, right? Like, that's...
Yes.
And like Eve, as in the the third woman, is actually a real person. I also like the fact that, like, that there's a second unknown woman, and Adam couldn't rock with that because God made her in front of him, and he seen all how the sausage is cooked.
Yeah.
And look, that sounds terrible, right? That sounds horrible and shallow. But I kind of understand. Like, if I seen that, I'd probably be, like, disgusted too.
Yeah.
So he had to get rid of her. Now, does that ever come back? Or would you rather not say about the second woman that has no name?
I don't remember the second wife showing up again. Okay. But I was going to say that Lilith is a villain in the Lucifer series.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Basically, it's Matthew, Eve, Cain, and Abel. It's all of them telling stories to Daniel, like around a fireplace.
Yeah.
And Cain ultimately kills Abel like he always does.
Yep.
Now is the last story is one about how bad Dad used to look before it was trapped in until Dream put it into a bottle?
Well, I think it's the idea that, like, so we've met Fiddler's Green, right? Which is like a dream of a place.
Right.
So I think this is supposed to be the Genesis story of, like, the dream of the place of Baghdad or Agrabah or just that entire genre of, like,
right.
Vaguely Middle Eastern themed dreams. and how, like, that dream of the place can still be inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Have you ever read any version of 1001 Nights?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I just loved how this had a little bit of that feel.
Right. It did. Like, is this before Aladdin?
This would have been, I think, very close.
Okay. Because, like, I know it's probably not trying to. There's a few things in here that, like, cross over with, like, normal pop culture,
Mm-hmm.
but it's before those things existed. So, like, it's really, like, interesting. Like, in a way. Hold on, I just thought about something. So, in a way, right?
Yeah.
It shows Neil Gaiman, not on purpose, has showed how all these stories permeate through time and space, where, like, he's touching on these pop culture milestones before they become pop culture milestones. But of course that's the case because stories are all, like, because our pop culture is just stories passed down from generation to generation.
Yes.
You get what I'm trying to say? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's this idea that, like, you know, if Aladdin was a thing in 1994, then the stuff that was happening in 1985 to 1992, like, it was happening to everybody in the world. There's no reason that the Aladdin story idea only happened once.
Right, exactly. And so he puts it in a jar, and then it becomes like Bad Dad as it is now. Now let me ask you: is this old man supposed to be the emperor?
I did not think that, but I really like that idea. That's totally how, like, if this was a movie, they would totally have the same actor playing the old man.
Right. Fun fact. Just to go back to Aladdin, now that you said that, you know, you've seen Aladdin. I'm certain you've seen Aladdin, right?
Yes.
And the guy at the beginning that kind of tells the story, that's Robert Williams.
Yes.
Like, a lot of people didn't know. I didn't know that was Robert
Okay.
Williams also. So yes.
Oh.
So yeah, the idea of that is, like, you know.
Well, and there's also precedent even in this single volume of stories for, you know, the leader of Rome going out and hiding as an old man. So we should absolutely be thinking along those lines of anybody we meet could secretly be the Emperor of the United States, or the King of Baghdad, or Caesar's son, or
No, I just want to go back to that story briefly. So, the idea that Augustus basically killed the Roman Empire and that he stopped it from growing because of what happened to him, and he just felt like this empire was too evil to, like, go on, right? Is that basically what happens in that?
Yeah, I think it's implied. I had two thoughts about it. One was that, you know, he has this plan that's laid out for him by Caesar of how Rome can conquer the world. And part of me feels like maybe he destroyed the plan out of spite.
Hell, wouldn't you?
Yes. But part of me also believes that maybe he looked at this idea of an entire world governed by Rome and was like, are you crazy? That sounds horrible. And in some sense, for the greater good, decided that Rome had to fail before it got too large. And you know what, honestly, maybe he tells himself that it's for the greater good, but ultimately it's probably more likely out of spite.
But, you know, that was a hard thing to watch.
Uh-huh.
Like, that was really woof. And, you know, a lot of stories don't deal with male on male rape.
Yeah.
And most of the time when male rape comes up, it's joked about and it's funny. Hell, I've done it, but like just to see that, and it was just really.
No, and this is a man who's still having nightmares every single day.
He
wakes up and he has to call in someone to tell him a story so he can fall back asleep.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, like, and again, we don't talk about like male rape victims a lot,
right?
So yeah, I just wanna. Okay, I know you gotta go soon, so let's get to this last volume, Brief Lives.
Yes,
I loved every moment of this from page 1 to the end.
Great. All right, see you next week.
Yep. Bye, guys. No. So, Delirium has a quest that she wants to go on.
Yes.
She wants to find her missing brother, Destruction.
And we do too, because he was really cool when he showed up for like 4 pages.
Yes, he was. And he shows up here again too. Basically having like almost like a crisis. Like of conscience, because apparently he just realized that this shit will go on whether he's there or not, and he was just like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pretty much what happens? Is that pretty much how that works? Is that's what I got from it, right?
Yeah, yeah. He's sort of I feel like he almost realizes he's fooling himself into thinking that he's actually like controlling creation and destruction.
Right.
And he's like, no, I'm just sort of like pretending to. And he's like, I could just pretend not to.
Yeah, and just live my life if I really wanted to.
Which is very similar to Lucifer's decision. Hell will go on with or without him.
Right.
He doesn't even have to be there.
Yeah, that is true. So, this volume opens up with like, Dream being a dramatic fucker and just standing in the rain for like a week.
Yes.
Do we know the woman that broke his heart? Did I miss something? Because I was like, because I was reading it, like, did I?
Okay, this is interesting because
is it a spoiler? Do I need?
I won't tell you right now, but I will tell you. I believe that in one of the last 3 volumes.
Well, I will hope so. Is the last 3 volumes.
Well, no. So in one of the last 3 volumes, there is one single dialogue, and in my opinion, that tells you who it is. But my husband and I kind of got in an argument about that, and he was like, "No, you can't even say that." And I was like, "No, I totally think it's true." So I will be really interested to have the more articulate version of that argument with you next month.
Okay, so we don't know. We just know another relationship didn't work out again for him, and he's making everybody miserable because he's miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, Delirium gives him a quest.
Yes.
And that
she gives him a crazy dream.
Exactly, and it breaks him out of his funk a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they go and search for their brother. The first part of this quest doesn't go well because people keep dying.
Yes. And the people who are dying are these sort of interesting, old-lived, magical people. So for each of them, we get kind of like a story about their particular magic, their little history, which I find, again, you've said this before. So the wanderer who turns into a bear and then bites off his own shadow so that the shadow can pretend to be him and he can be a shadow. Like, I would read 10 damn volumes about that guy.
Yeah,
and it's a throwaway story in here.
And he takes his shadow self and makes that into him. It's just yeah, it's all trippy. Like that's the thing about this book, right? It's really trippy.
Yeah.
So, like, the only black person ever in this book dies. Well, excuse me, the second black person ever in all of this series dies because she smoked a cigarette, so that's the thing. Poor Ruby. Died a virgin. Nobody should die a virgin. Nobody, like, that's
You're not wrong. That is a raw deal.
Yeah, that's a terrible way. That is a terrible way to go. Oh, man. I like that she was watching porn, though. That was funny. That was...
Yeah.
Gotta get her rocks off somehow. Anyway, I'm sorry. So, yeah, he kind of... He gets help from who again? Who's that he gets help from?
Pharamond, who was a Babylonian god. And has just sort of diversified into what he calls transportation, which is probably drug dealing. Not dealing, but, like moving your cocaine from South America to North America.
Look, I'm black. All my rap music is about drugs. I know what you mean.
But but this isn't like...
Drug trafficking.
Yes, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Because this does not look like the sort of guy who stands outside.
No, it does not. Then
he reminds me a lot of Lando Calrissian, actually. Can we go back and recast the Solo movie and have this drawing in this comic book play Lando?
No, despite my complaints, I think Don Glover did a fine job.
Okay.
I do think he did a fine job. Anyway, not gonna get on that. So he gets help for Pharamond. He ends it because, like, people keep dying, and really he had an ulterior motive. Well, this sets Delirium off, right?
Yeah.
And then Death has to come and yell at him to get him straight. Again. God, I love Death. Such a good bit sister. Mm-hmm. And he does. And this time he's genuine. And they go see their brother Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And man, what Destiny says to him about she never really loved you, she'll never love you again no matter what you do. And it kind of breaks Dream. And this is the first time we've ever seen like real, and it won't be the last, but this is the first time we ever see real, genuine emotion from Dream and like despair.
Yeah.
And like, and the only person that can get him up out his funk is Delirium. She pulls her senses together.
Yeah.
For like 10 minutes to tell off Destiny and to get her brother back on her feet.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like...
No, it is a really strong emotional turning point.
Yeah, it is. It really is, man. It's just like... And like, she did it just enough to help her brother. You know what I'm saying? Then she goes back to being, the Delirium we know and love.
Well, and it's interesting because it sort of shows this idea that the Endless are subject to the pulls of each other as well. So, like, we've seen before that Dream and Desire are, like, constantly banging heads.
Right.
But, like, we also see that, like Despair could take over Dream. Or Dream can, like, steal victims from Despair, and that, Delirium, or I guess maybe more as her former aspect, Delight, can also, like, inspire Dream. So it's very, like, interesting to see that, like, while they are 7 Endless, like, maybe they're not really that different.
And I think that maybe what Destruction was getting at a little bit, right? That, like, in the end, none of this stuff really matters.
Right.
Right. And it's all a bunch of, like, he says something interesting on Destruction as about, like even our time is brief because once this universe ends, so do we. I mean, he has a very interesting thing about what's brief, because apparently he did his job for 10 billion years, and like this universe still got a few billion years left, but to him that's brief. But he said, like, when this world ends, so will we, except maybe death. Death is maybe the only one who might survive, because death apparently is the most universal. Life and death is the most universal of all, building blocks, apparently.
Yeah. Well, she has to be there to take the universe when it dies.
Exactly.
So maybe she'll only last a minute or two after that.
But yes, so I mean, is there anything you want to say? I've been talking. Is there anything you'd like to point out, talk about with this volume?
No, I think you did a really good job of pulling out the interaction between Destiny, Dream, and Delirium as being like kind of an emotional pivot. I kind of wanted to ask how you felt about Morpheus going to see his son as an oracle and then ultimately killing his son for him as a favor.
I mean, I think everything that needs to be said is like what in the last couple of pages, right? Like it wrecks Morpheus, like it wrecks him, and we see emotion again. Also, it's funny because Destruction says something too that I think is pertinent to like all of a sudden Morpheus showing all this emotion, and that Destruction was like, you've changed. And Morpheus like, I haven't changed that much. No, not really. He was like, you care about a human woman dying? Like that's not you. That never would have been you in the past 10 billion years. Why do you care all of a sudden now? And again, it's that thing where people see you as you are and not as you project yourself or try to project yourself sometimes.
Right.
So clearly Morpheus has become a better person through his ordeals and shit over the last few years, right? Even though he doesn't see it, Destruction clearly sees that there's a change in his brother.
Right.
And apparently Morpheus blames himself for Destruction leaving. Apparently Morpheus really misses Destruction too, but he just won't admit it to himself. And he feels guilty about him leaving for some reason.
Yeah.
So I just that was a really hard thing to it wasn't hard to get through, but it was very emotional. He still had the blood of his son's hands on there, and even Desire is saddened, and this is what she wanted. Even she's not satisfied by this. Even she is sad, and apparently even she misses her brother.
Yes.
So.
Okay, I just was, I will be interested to hear your reaction, because killing your son is a big deal.
Well, yeah, I'm sure this is gonna come back up. I feel like this is not a one-off thing. I feel like this is a start of something traumatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
You had asked about time travel before.
Right.
And I wanted to bring you back for a second to the page where Destiny, just after Dream and Delirium have left, the wind sort of flutters and Destiny sees a few different pages in his book.
Right.
And I just want to invite you to a little creative writing exercise to think about the panel where there's blood on the throne of the Dream King and the Corinthian stands behind it.
Yes, and dressed in all white. Oh, okay.
Because if Destiny's holding this book and the wind blows, he may be seeing pages that haven't happened yet.
Well, yeah, and
or this could be more Corinthian backstory.
Right.
But I just think that that's a very, because we get a page that is from the very first issue where Morpheus gets captured, and then we have a page which is one of Death's days on Earth pretending to be human. And actually it kind of looks a lot like the Boxers and Saints book that we read.
By the way, I don't know where it is, but the last two books we read, Menstrual Blood has played like a very like prevalent role, and I'm sick of this shit.
There wasn't any. Oh no, wait, there was. Sorry, there was Menstrual Blood in this one too.
Yeah, I just like, look, that is disgusting. I don't. Maybe I'm being a fussy man, but
yeah, no, it's gross. You're right.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
We think it's a little bit gross too, but you get used to it.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyways, I will assure you right now, I do not think it is menstrual blood on the Dream King's throne.
Well, no, I was.
I know you were talking about the witchy calling the moon ceremony thing. But I just want to assure you, this specific instance of blood, I am almost 100% certain, actual blood.
Oh God, I hope so. So, like, okay, before you go, there's one last thing I want to touch on.
Okay.
And I've been meaning to talk to you this about, and now that we read 7 volumes of this.
Yes.
The art.
Yeah.
The art is very inconsistent in these books, in my opinion. Like, sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's kind of bad, and like, I kind of wish he just had one artist for this book.
I will say that even when the art isn't good or isn't great, I guess it's all better than I can draw, so it's all good art. But the layouts and everything still work.
Well, no, so, okay, so there's nothing terrible per se, but to all the artists' credit, it's very uniform, but clearly you could tell like some are better than others. I don't know. I just kind of wish he had like a collaborative partner, kind of like with Promethea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like
that J.H. Williams guy would have knocked this out of the park.
Well, look, I was just about to say, I kind of wish J.H. Williams like did all the art for this. I know we're gonna do Overture, probably next month, but kind of wish J.H. Williams was around back then to do all this art.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that is a really good criticism, because one of the things, like, obviously Sandman is like one of those books that I lend out to people, and I always have to tell them, I'm like, look, you're going to get so into the story that you're not going to care that the art and the colors and everything are like 90s comics.
Yeah.
You're gonna get over it, but when you hand somebody to it and you're like, this is one of the best comic books ever, and they open it up and they're like,
there's something about the inking process back then that's just like, and this is the same thing with like X-Men, right? Like when Jim Lee did X-Men, everybody talking about how great the art is. But it just looks, the art itself is not terrible, but just the inking, and I don't know what it is, it's just not good. And like I find like this is a lot with 90s comics. Not all, but a lot of them has like this weird inking that's like.
Yeah, so it's sort of, there is a little bit of a like getting into it process where until your imagination takes over and is sort of filling in all of the gaps and almost like animating it for you in your imagination, there is a little bit of a hurdle there to ignore, like we were saying earlier, we were like, okay, Wanda, is she ugly? Is she a man? Is she lumpy because the artist had a sore wrist that day? Like, what is going on? And the fact that there was any ambiguity there means that it could have been better.
Yeah. So, Amanda, I think we've touched on everything, right? I think that's it.
Yeah. I would love, do you have any thoughts about where you think this story will go?
I feel like this ends with Dream dying and Daniel taking over. I feel like this, with him, with the killing of his son, everything is about to go downhill. That's what it feels like.
Well, it feels like you've seen a movie before.
Okay, so, I usually don't pick on what we're going to read next besides this, but I think, because I like to make the prestige formats a little timely, but I think I'm going to do it this time. This is a special episode. This is our prestige format show. So our next regular episode will actually be next week. And we are actually reading the first 12 issues of Kelly Sue DeConnick Captain Marvel series. Now, I need to make this clear. This is why I'm making this announcement. Marvel started this series over 1 million times with Kelly Sue DeConnick still writing it, but there's 2 or 3 different volume ones of Captain Marvel written by Kelly Sue DeConnick. So, I want to make it clear, we are reading the 2012 version, which is the very first, and we're reading the first 12 issues. If you buy it in trade, you can either buy them separately, as in Pursuit of Flight for Volume 1, and Volume 2 is called Down, or you can buy the Compendium Edition, which is the first 12 issues, and it's called Captain Marvel Earth Mightiest Hero Volume 1, and that contains all 12 issues. Also, we will be discussing the movie, so expect a slightly longer episode, because we will also talk about the movie if Amanda goes see it.
I will try to get out and see it, yeah.
Alright, so no promises, but we'll definitely be reading the book next week, and as far as this show goes, we have one more for this prestige format show, and with that, we'll be reading World's End, The Kindly Ones, and The Wake, which is volume 8, 9, and 10. That will be released on... Hold on. That will be released on the 1st of April, hopefully, next month. So you have a whole month to read these 3 volumes. I'm telling you now, I've looked ahead. Volume 9 is 12 issues, so you might want to get started on this as soon as possible. Get to it. So, with that being said, I am Jamil Payne.
I'm Amanda Comey.
And we are out.